Hello and welcome. Today we're in my kitchen and I'm just gonna be honest, this is a little out of my wheelhouse and a little out of my comfort zone. The kitchen is my paradise. I will say that, but some of the pieces surrounding me creating this video almost didn't let me make this video. And I wanna come back to this, but I wanna introduce a little bit of where we're going. So if this feels interesting, you can stay with me or you can swipe to the left and keep watching other videos. Let me just start where I started with this idea this past week. Sunday, it's Wednesday today, I was at a yoga festival out in Joshua Tree. And this is a festival that's nurtured my reality and existence and my spiritual practices for many, many years and has brought me spiritual community on more levels than I really had realized until I went back to this festival. And I really only had a day and a half there, and I was torn in the morning on Sunday between going to a yoga class because it felt like I was at a yoga festival and I should really partake in that. Or going to this women's circle with this woman that I've really is the reason that I first felt comfortable going to this festival. And I decided, because that was my first instincts, I went to this women's circle with her. We're under this dome, it's about 100 degrees at like 10 o'clock in the morning. And she asked us to dance with the divine. And she asked us to go around in a circle, about 50 women, and to share what our name is, what our mother's name is, what our grandmother's name is, and how we find ourselves connecting to the goddess energy every single day. And within that, honoring the lineages of the women that have come before us. And it was interesting that as each woman talked, their dance of the divine had this ancestral sort of wisdom woven into it. And when it got to me, I was the last person to go. I chose to not really think about what I was going to say. For once, I just wanted to be saturated with what others were sharing and saying, rather than having to have this ideal of perfection of what I was going to share with a group of strangers I would probably never see again. And so when it got to me, I said, my name is Jessie. My mother's name is Nancy, and my grandmother's name was Bernice. And my daily practice with the divine is working with the plants and their intelligence and coming to play in the kitchen. And we're starting to recognize that some of the medicine that I have to offer is this inorganic and in some ways passed down to me, but not totally, wisdom that I have from the kitchen and the plants. And I'm giving you some backstory that I didn't necessarily announce in the group, but what really came from this, and it was a longer share than that, was what I started proclaiming is, I'm teaching other women to come back to the simplicities of nature, their true nature. And for me, that's really through the kitchen. And I've been having this big conversation with myself and my own community lately of how we each hold within us the DNA of all the women that have walked before us, especially within our ancestral lineage. And then here we are in this very modern world. And so it's almost like we have the threads of our ancestors holding us and anchoring us into the ways which they tended to the land, worked, in the household, nurtured children. And then generations most recently have given us the permission to show up in these really big roles as women, being CEOs, showing up in roles that, women before us never even would have thought of, even just having the permission to, I live alone in a home in Southern California. That was never a thought that would have sparkled in my grandmother's eye. Not even something that she would have thought was an option to her. And I've gotten to be empowered in the sense that I get to show up in my life and this planet in this really enriched way. And yet I still have all of my grandmother and the roots that anchored her to this nourishing household that she ran that is far extended even just her immediate family. And so I'm starting to recognize that they're part of the longing and part of the difficulty I have with navigating how I show up in the world is this divide that I have. It's, on one foot, I want to be a homemaker. I want to be home. I want to be, cooking somebody dinner and tending to children. And on the other hand, I've run a business for 10 years and I can't imagine not having that in my life. And yet I flex and I flow, and I kind of like the two wolf stories where it's like, which one do I feed? And I started to realize after I made this really bold statement in front of a bunch of women this weekend that I don't actually have to choose both. That right now, while I feed myself, I want to feed others. And I am not a professional chef. I learned to cook from my grandmother and watching my mom just, try to get food on the table after sports, and, a husband and my father who worked late hours. And I really want something a little bit different. I want to be in this role, and I want to be in this role, and I want there to feel like there's a bridge between the two of them. And so when I was driving home from Joshua Tree, it was like, well, just cook for others then. Make that part of what you do. And so while I can't feed the universe through my camera lens, I want to feed you all through, the spiritual wisdom that flows through me that I just don't always have the opportunity or the platform to put it into. And then also feeding you by nurturing, by inspiring you. And today we're working with nettles, and you may say, Jessie, I don't have fresh nettles. Guess what? I have waited 3 years to make this recipe. And I'm so excited to share it with you. And even if it takes you 3 years to make this recipe, I want you to know that it's possible. I want you to know that it's possible to enliven your everyday meals without having to overextend yourself. I want you to know that you can enrich the food and the things that you're already making by just making some tiny, simple little shifts and additions to what you're already doing. When I work with my clients, and so this is my story of imperfection, and why this title is called what it is today is, so again, I had this message on Sunday. Of course, I was driving home, got back into work. It's Wednesday. I've had this whole story of like, I cannot make this video until my kitchen's perfect. I can find the right angle. I move furniture around. And then it was like, do we really have to do these things just to share what we have to share? I don't ever wear my glasses, and here I am. I just want to share this with you, and I'm just having the spark of this divine after I got off a beautiful phone call with my mastermind group, and just acknowledging our own imperfections and the ways that we show up, and actually how much originality and magic is in that. And so if I had to clean my kitchen, if I had to, put myself together, curl my hair like I imagined, I probably would have never made this video. And so as I tell my clients, right, if we're working on a tea protocol for them, and my ideal way for them to bring that tea in their life is to do an overnight infusion and then have, this really long steep with these mineral rich herbs, that might stop them in their track, because they might wake up the next morning and think, I forgot to do it, I'm just not going to do it. I always tell them, I would rather you forget to do it the night before and do it in the morning. And if you forget to do it in the morning, just make a hot cup of that tea in the afternoon, as long as it's appropriate to drink, in the afternoon. Because we stop ourselves with these ideals of perfectionism as humans, as women, especially as women in this divided world of like wanting to make, our home, whatever that looks like, right? And we don't have to be mothers. I'm not a mother of human children at this point in my life, but there is this still yearning to be in the home and to be a creator and to love on the space and the people who come in and enrich this. And yet I still, want to be a boss, and I have clients to see in about 45 minutes. So I want to have both, and sometimes that means being a little bit imperfect in the ways that I show up. And so I hope those of you that have made it this far with me so far, and are maybe waiting for a recipe to pop up, we're getting there. Let's actually get into this. But I just want to plant that seed with the ways that these videos will continue to show up will just be this organic nature of me being in here and some messages that I have to share, which is why I'm going to call this series our kitchen wisdom, right? It's much about the food that we're putting in our bodies, as well as the nourishment of these own things that I'm working through, that we're all working through as a collective, especially as we come to the end of the eclipse today. So let's dive in, and as we're doing so, I'm going to share a little story of why it's taking me 3 years to make this recipe. So we're going to make Nettles Pesto today, and if you know me and if you've ever visited me as a client, you know I love nettles, and if you know anything about herbalism, you probably love nettles. And I have to say, nettles have a pretty bad rap just in the ecosystem out there. We know them as stinging nettles. I'm gonna actually pick a leaf up so that maybe you can see, depending on the camera lighting, because I'm not perfect here with my camera skills, but this is a fresh leaf from my garden, and if we can get the angle just right, you might just be able to see the stinging, I can't remember what they're called on there, I just looked it up, starts with a T, so if you know it, put it in the comments. But anyways, nettles, leaves, and stems have these stingers on them, and so they've kind of gotten a bad rap in our culture, but there's actually beauty to the wisdom of, stings, just like roses kind of keep things at bay with their thorns. Many of us do as well, right? And so it's learning to work with the magic of what's beneath the surface. And so for me, there's so much enrichment with just the inner nature of nettles, the actual plant matter that we get to receive. I call it the superfood. I mean, if you think about working with spinach in your kitchen, Nettles puts a shadow over spinach as far as the minerals that it has in it, the vitamins. And so when I was in herbalism school, a lot of the peers were talking about making nettles pesto with their nettles growing in their backyard. I had never met a nettle at that point, or at least that I knew of. And usually you kind of know nettles because if you meet them, they get usually left a little bit of a gift for you behind. And there's also something beautiful about that, which will be a story for another day. But I had the blessings of connecting with a friend who we've been in each other's orbits for years, and they're actually starting a business that we're working, next to each other in to grow medicinal plants. And Lauren came into the pop-up at the apothecary this spring and had a bunch of her plantlings that she had, and she had put nettles aside because she knew this has been my goal, is to make nettles pesto from fresh nettles for many, many years. And that plant that I have outside that Lauren gave me now is just, it's abundant. It's probably because I love and sing over it all the time. But what I want to share with you is, so again, if you don't get a fresh nettles plant or have access to fresh nettles that are clean environmentally, then someday you'll hopefully be able to manifest a plant. Or when Lauren gets her business totally launched this new year, I'll put some information because she just launched her website yesterday. We'll put that in the show notes for you to give them a follow as well. And then you'll be able to shop at Thimble and Seed in the coming months for new plants that they have coming up. So nettles was one of those. I finally got the gift of nettles, and now for anybody who comes over to my house this whole summer, I've been making a variation of my nettles pesto. The second thing I want to name is that I am not a chef. I cook very intuitively, and so if you need measurements, you're not going to find them here. But what you can do is you can go onto Pinterest or any of the sources that you find recipes. There's so many recipes there. But what I want to encourage you to do, if you're watching this and you're curious and you want to have this element of wisdom in your kitchen, is learning to invoke that inner intuition within you. It's a trust that comes with knowing the flavor profiles, and that takes time in your kitchen. And then knowing how you want something to taste at the end. And that's usually where I start, is like, I want to make something, and then I'll go to Pinterest and put 3 recipes together, never write anything down. So it drives everybody crazy when they're like, could you make that thing again? And I'm like, what did it taste like? So I work with all my senses when I'm cooking. I'm holding these tongs because I'm going to take you through the steps right now. And then again, if somebody wants to offer up a recipe based on what I'm sharing with you in the show notes, in the comments, please do that. But essentially what I've done is, you can see the pot on the stove there. I put a boiling pot after I picked my nettles out of the garden with these and some scissors and a nice bowl. Put the boiling pot on, let it come to a boil. Again, what we want to do with nettles is we're making a nutrient dense meal here, right? We're taking pesto as we know it, which I just love anyways, and we're like amping up its possibility for nutritional value as well as medicinal availability. And so we want to keep the most availability in these leaves as we can. We're also working mostly with the leaf matter. So if you've got seeds starting to come off of there, flowering edges, cut those off, get most of the stems out of there as much as you can without stinging yourself. Put the boiling pot on, get those nettles washed up. And then when the boiling pot comes up, essentially what we're doing is blanching these. So if you're familiar with that, you know where I'm going is turn the boil off, throw your leaves in there, and then just when they start to turn to that vibrant green color, you know they're done. It's also going to take the sting away from the nettles so that you can actually work and digest these without stinging, having ulcers in your mouth. So what you'll do is have a cup of ice water ready so that when you pull those out of the boiling pot, you're going to dump those right into the ice water. So I have my nettles blanched already. So that will be your first step. I have my food processor here, which you imperfectly can't see it, but you're going to just trust what I'm doing here. I'm going to pull my nettles out. In an ideal world, maybe you would dry them. So I have about this much. Let's call that cup and a half by the time I get all of these out of the water bed that they're in. You're going to put that in your food processor, your blender, whatever you have. Again, don't let kitchen utensils, all of these things get in the way from just making something amazing. So I've got all of those in here. The other elements that I'm going to be bringing into, a pretty traditional pesto menu is I have our Parmesan. If you're a vegan, you can find a vegan Parmesan these days. I've got garlic. We're going to see how much we actually use. I think in the past I put too many garlic cloves in. I think it was an older garlic, so it was pretty pungent. I'm going to try a little bit of lemon today. I haven't usually put a lot of lemon in the past. And then, traditionally we use pine nuts in a pesto. I have some sunflower seeds as well as some pumpkin seeds. And so we're going to use a combination of those today. I also had some dandelion leaves in the backyard that I was going to grab. I didn't, but you could throw other greens in there. If you have spinach and you're just wanting to use it up, just boost this baby up. Again, we're cooking with what we have, what we know, and how we want it to taste and how we want it to make people feel. So just do that. And then of course, olive oil is over here out of the picture. So I'm going to just chunk up my Parmesan, put a decent amount in. I'll show you about how much I'm going to put in, and then you can always go back and add more. So we're going to start here, just kind of crack this up a little bit. I love a lot of cheese, so we're going to do that. The other thing I forgot is salt as well. Using sea salt is really great. It's much more hearty and mineral rich than your traditional table salt, which has kind of been weaned and waned out of some of its nutrients. And so getting a really nice salt is a really good way to increase your nutritional value with anything you're doing. So once we have those in there, I'm going to dump a glug of olive oil in here. I just keep adding until I get the consistency that I want. So again, let's maybe hold this up. We're in this together, you guys. Okay, so let's glug. Let's see how much. We'll probably need more than that, I can almost assure you, but we're gonna start there just because you can always add, can't take away. I'm gonna try half a lemon in here. Nice and juicy. Okay, and then I put the nuts there for show, so I'm gonna just pour and eyeball our sunflower seeds, our pumpkin. Okay, see where that gets us. And then we're gonna go ahead. So garlic, I could tell you so much about garlic, and I'm gonna not nerd out too much and just say, first of all, use fresh garlic wherever you can. Again, if you're not cooking a meal because you just want to use the diced garlic that's in your fridge, go for it. Garlic has so many medicinal values. The thing is, the longer the garlic has been exposed to air, the less medicinal it becomes. So I'm going to be honest, I'm making this for dinner tonight. In a perfect world, I would be crushing this garlic, specifically crushing this garlic, and eating this within 5 to 10 minutes, because garlic has, and I'm going to show this to you as best as I can with the video setup I have on. So we know garlic obviously has this outer shell on it that I'm just removing. I'm going to go ahead and crush that to peel the skin off of it. And much like an onion, we have a few layers in garlic. And the first 2 layers that we have, the actual skin of the garlic and the inner weavings of, can we? Let's see. No, maybe not. You can look at your garlic clove at home. But essentially the outer skin, when it is crushed specifically, and this doesn't happen the same way when we slice garlic and dice garlic, but when it's crushed, the chemical reaction that happens between that first outer layer of skin meeting the constituents of the garlic on the inside, they create a process known as allicin. This is incredibly, it's like a huge value to all of our systems, like probiotic, antimicrobial, antibacterial, all these things that we know to be true of garlic. But the longer that this crush has happened, the more that wanes off. Just, as most things, right? The longer they've had access to air around them, the quicker they sort of become less medicinal. And so cooking garlic, what I say is cooking garlic is still great. You're going to get the aromatics and you're still going to get a little bit of medicine. It just changes the value of what you're doing. And this is what I really want to share with individuals, through this online value, as well as the clients that I work with, is it doesn't mean it's bad to cook garlic. It just means it's going to change the medicinal value of what you're doing with garlic. And in this instance, we want a nice, we're in fall, but end of summer here in Southern California, pesto. And so again, I'm going to eat this tonight. It's still going to be delicious, still going to be nutritious. But if I were to eat this right away, I would be getting, and I'm going to use my garlic crush, my favorite tool in the kitchen, as many of you know, and just chomp this in here. Okay, I think that's everything. Let's put a little bit of salt in here. All right, and then it's going to get loud as it does with a food processor. So let's do this up, see where we get with what we've added. We're making a mess. Sometimes you do. So again, using my senses, I can hear and I can actually feel the vibration. You probably see this jumping. It's breaking up some of the matter, probably the cheese in there. But I can also see, I think I want a little bit more of olive oil in there. I'm gonna get a fork out real quick though and just taste where we're at. But yeah, we definitely need some more liquid in here. So again, sensory cooking. Okay, another glug. And let's keep breaking up those seeds and that cheese. And I would keep going at this, basically continue to break it down. I would keep trying it, but I refuse to make a cut on my video at this point because that would stop me from doing it. And I also don't want to keep droning on with the food processor. So let me give one more go. We're getting there, actually. I think we need a little bit more garlic. So let's do that. We'll keep talking for just a second. But essentially, if you look at pesto from all different facets, there's different consistencies. And so I just encourage you, as you use your senses to find the consistency, it tastes really good. It's just getting it to the consistency. I like a really thin pesto that's not chunky, but there's actually something really beautiful with the chunky space that it's at right now. So let's, in my world, there can never be too much garlic. So in your world, maybe there can be, and that's just knowing what you know about your likes and dislikes and actually being able to cook for that instead of cooking by what somebody on Pinterest told you to do. I don't tell them what to do. I'm just showing you how to do it. Okay, so I can see it's starting to break down. Let's get a little taste in here. Yeah, that's definitely there. Okay, and so then what I'll end up doing from here is essentially putting this in some Tupperware. I'm gonna put it in the fridge for later. Brew up my pasta. I save the water from the blanching as well as the boiling of the nettles, and I'm gonna put that into the water that I boil for the pasta. You could always put this on a salad too. Like, think about putting like together a really nutritious, dense salad and then putting this pesto on top of it. It's like, hello senses, hello nutrition. The other secret, and we'll share this with some other recipes down the road, is when I boil anything, whether it's a soup pot or pasta water, I throw some immunity boosters in there. That can look like reishi mushroom sticks or astragalus sticks, which are those little tongue depressors. So I'm sure we'll be making some fall food, and I'll share with you kind of how to do that and what that looks like, but I'll be adding some more boost with that. And then what you can actually do too, as I'm thinking out loud, is if you want that freshness of the garlic, my herbalism teacher talks about this all the time, is like literally just crushing a fresh clove of garlic on top of whatever you're doing. So even though I've made this ahead of time, that allicin medicinal value will have degraded at some point by the time I eat it tonight, I can still throw more garlic on there and have a really dense meal, which is, you know, something that I just love to eat. So all of that to be said, here I am. I just made my first cooking video. Wasn't perfect, made a big mess, wore white pants, actually didn't get anything on them, knock on wood so far. And I'm gonna clean up, and then I'm gonna go support my clients over the spa. But I'm really proud of myself right now, and I hope that I can in some way inspire you through this kitchen wisdom, whether it be just getting into the kitchen and making a mess and trying and using all of your senses. There is no failure. There's just adaptations that you make along the way. And then I hope that what I bring through these videos is also too just the courage to see these simple little ways that you can change your relationship to what you're already doing in the kitchen, and to bring some of the wisdom of not only just, you know, my ancestors, but your own ancestors into this, so that we, maybe as women, as men, as, you know, all beings, we can begin to bridge this DNA that we have of our ancestors that are in us, that's still loud and proud, and being very hushed at these moments quite often, and quite frankly with me, and be able to live in these modern worlds and to build that bridge. And for me, that is through cooking, and it's through sharing my cooking with all of you. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I hope that you go forth and you cook something really magical. And if you do, and if you have anything that you want me to put together, please share that in the comments. If you enjoyed this, hit that subscribe button. I'm doing my best to get weekly videos out between the aroma fusion and now this kitchen wisdom. And then share this with somebody. Share the inspirations along the way. So I hope you all have a magical day, and that you are just filled with wisdom to the brim.